Yeah, we have 17 people in here right now, so that's how many we had signed up. But yeah, today's just going to be an open conversation. Steph's going to kind of start it off 15-ish minutes, kind of talking a bit more about what she's been up to with ICP or however long she wants to talk. Just kind of what ICP's been up to lately and her perspectives on entrepreneurship and what entrepreneurs can be doing during COVID-19 right now. But really, it's just a chance for an open conversation. So you can be asking questions right to Steph if you want. Or there's a chat down at the bottom. You can send it in through the chat, and then me or one of the staff members will ask it to Steph whenever she's asking for questions. But yeah, definitely it's just a chance to have a conversation. Also, if you want to just personally message me something, if you don't want other people to see who's sending it, you can do that through the chat as well. But yeah, with that, I'll let Steph introduce herself. And we'll
no, Sean, I prefer if you didn't record it. That'd be okay.
That's fine. It was for Kelly. That's all.
No, I hear it. Tell Kelly she can ask me anything she wants, but just for everyone's sake, so they can speak freely and not worry that it's
sure, yeah,
and out.
That's fine. Yeah.
Because I feel like so Rach introduced it. I know most of you on the call. For those of you who I don't, I'll just give like a 2-second intro who I am. But when Rach reached out and asked about doing this, the way I feel that makes sense is that given everything that's going on, is it becomes really much just an interactive discussion. No one has the answers to everything, so I won't sit and pretend I do, but can certainly talk about what we're seeing right now. And some of the struggles of when I'm talking to founders of what I'm hearing and how they're dealing with it. If that can offer any help to anyone, then that's what we hope for. So for those, honestly, there's not that many of you, but for the few of you who don't know who I am, so I'm Stefanie. I'm a staple around the startup zone. I'm not a staff of the startup zone. People ask quite frequently, but I work out of here 5 days a week and use the space. Love it. What I do is I run the small venture fund on the Island Capital Partners. We are a group of investors pull together a whole bunch of money, and we've been investing in early stage companies over the course of the last 2.5 years. There's 5 of us on the management team. I say I run it because I'm the only one who gets paid and does it every day. Everyone else volunteers their time, which is actually it's quite amazing. We have a management team of 5 of us, and the other 4 for absolutely nothing dedicate approximately anywhere from 125 to 150 hours a month of their time to mentor and work with early stage companies at all different stages within the early stage, because there are. So anywhere from pre-commercialization right through into ramping up into growth. And that's what we do. So to date, we have 10 portfolio companies, all who are right now going, what the hell do I do with what's happening in the world? Everyone's going, I don't know what to do and I don't know how to react. And so what I find has been really amazing to watch unfold, and I can't wait to actually read the case studies in years to come on how this has happened and how entrepreneurs are going through the different stages. But in the beginning, it seemed like, circling back to 3.5 weeks ago, every single day, it was just like new information. And everyone was feeling scared, and they didn't know what to do. And the reality hits of that's how everyone felt. No one knew what to do. This is unprecedented times, and that's okay. So what we ended up spending a lot of our time doing and still doing is essentially it was like damage control immediately. So the first week it was have conversations with each of our companies and really get in there with them and help them and work on their strategies of what to do next and what to do in the coming 3 to 6 months, and how to get the company organized so that it comes out the other side of this, certainly not unaffected, because I think it's naive to think that anyone is coming out of this unaffected. I really do. Because if you're not feeling the effects now, you're likely going to feel them in the downturn of the economy in 6, 12, and 18 months out. So it's how do we navigate this? So I'm going to share, just because it's not my words at all, but it was a great overview which I just saw was a letter penned to CEOs about 2.5, 3 weeks ago that I shared within our portfolio company of CEOs and some in our pipeline. Just really breaking it down to go, calm down. And here are the key things that you need to do or look at while you're putting your strategy together. So the first was anticipate the problems. Be real about this. So be really honest and anticipate, given your specific business, what are the challenges that are going to come at you in the short term and over the course of 6 months. And even if you need to bucket that down to 3, 6, 12 months out, like do it in intervals like that. Focus on liquidity. Cash is king. It's something like I think I've been told this my whole life by entrepreneurs in my family, but you have money, like cash is king. So you need to focus on whatever you can do to get more cash in the bank. So currently right now, if that's programs that are coming at us from the both provincial and federal government levels, some that are being pushed down through the banks, it's needing to get up to date really quick on what's out there, what's available, and not waste time on what's not. So that doesn't work for me, click it off. Because what we're really trying to get to quickly too is the realization of what programs work for some of these early stage companies. And the truth is a lot of them aren't. So what we need to do is get as much of that information and data as we can and put that back out to the government, who is eagerly right now trying to deploy money everywhere, and politely remind them of the places where they're missing the mark. The other is aggressively chase revenue. So every company is different, but like for some people, and we have this in our portfolio company, and we're in an interesting time. So in a few industries specifically, I can think of, it's really hard to get face time with customers. It's really hard to find ways to generate new customers, get prospects in front of you. And right now, everyone's home in North America. Like everyone's home and everyone's working, but they're also already trying to think about ways that they can work more effectively and efficiently. So for individually into your businesses, go after that revenue. This isn't the time to kind of curl up and wait for this to pass. There could be a real opportunity here to get customer facing via Zoom. And this time, once the world turns back on into whatever the new world is, the one thing's for sure is everyone's going to be really busy. Cleaning up whatever mess, doing damage control, whatever it is, it's going to get busy. So make the most of trying to get meetings and get in front of people now. And the scary one for everyone, quickly reduce cash burn. I'm not sure how many people are on the line who have a lot of staff, so it might not be as applicable, but the reality is when you run a company, no one wants to lay people off. Nobody wants to do that. But sometimes you have to do that. And if you're not making any money, you may have to temporarily lay people off. And there are ways to frame it so it is a temporary layoff for 4-6 weeks. And do what you have to do. It's not easy. And for some companies that can continue to move on without doing that, that's fantastic. And don't do that. But I really worry going into the future of the companies who didn't do what was necessary to preserve cash in this time. And in 6 months, when the world is turning back on, they're out of money. They have nothing left. And they were paying people to be unproductive. And so it's a nasty conversation, but they're ones that are really important to have. And I haven't been hearing enough of them in probably some of the smaller companies. I'm hearing it in the larger companies, but the larger companies, like I have people in my world that have been impacted by companies who they have 12,000 employees and they had to do temporary layoffs because the fun fact is larger companies also don't have a lot of money because they take it in and they spend it out. And so it's a real fear for everybody, and they're going to be impacted as well. But it's just, what do you do? And then what's my last one? And keep perspective. So I think the real thing for right now is I thought this was a great way to end it when I read this letter, was be realistic about how long this is going to play out too. Because what scares me for companies who don't do what they need to do to develop a strategy right now, they may keep the wheels on and the doors open for the next 4 to 6 weeks, maybe the next 3 months. I'm worried those are the companies that we're going to see go bankrupt in 6 months, 12 months. That's a real worry and a concern that there's companies being impacted right now, but I think there's just a whole other slew of industries that are going to be impacted down the road as things start to progress and business doesn't go back to normal. We find our new normal. Yeah, so I'm going to open it up to questions before I keep talking.
Okay.
So again, if people want to send in questions through the chat too, we can do it that way.
Okay. All right. Let me see. All right.
Who's that?
Uh-huh.
You got Kay and Angela over there. Is that one of them?
Yeah, I feel like Angela.
Did you?
I didn't say anything.
Oh.
I am here.
Does anyone have any questions or want to start to share where they're finding some of these big pain points themselves for their businesses? You guys are quiet. Come on now.
I'll say something just because nobody else wants to. For me personally, I think the struggle is exactly what you said. Like, I'm not going to see the hurt probably until next year. The way that my business operates is that I get a contract. So all of my contracts are probably, I'll say, like, the ones that already started are until December of this year. So those people have either already figured out how to pay for that, or they've got funding for it, or whatever. And then, so to go into 2021 is when people are going to have to find money or put it in the budget, and they're not going to have the money in their budget to hire me. So for me personally, like, I can see that scenario exactly where, the government's putting out funding saying, if you're losing money, call us, we'll help you out. But I'm not going to see the ripple effect until next year.
That's really interesting, Angela, because that's been something like I've been voicing now for the last little while. Is that's where I have the real fear for a lot of these large sectors, that they're absolutely still going to work every day and things are happening right now, but the ripple effect long term, or even how we get back to a new sense of normal and our government has just deployed, a few $1 trillion out, and all of a sudden things really tighten up. Yeah, that's real.
I'd maybe just add, with regard to kind of laying people off, my understanding of the Canada Emergency Response benefit is that you don't actually have to lay people off. People just don't have to be working. So, where companies can, pull back hours, not have people work, but still, enable people to get that. But keep your staff on if you can, because that benefit is available for a maximum of 16 weeks. So that's maybe, there's I think you were kind of saying, Stephanie, the messaging about how you do it is different. So you can sort of like say, look, this government program is there. Let's make use of it. You're not laid off. You're a valued employee. We want to keep you around. And that messaging, and I think there's some misunderstandings about the eligibility criteria and what constitutes eligibility for the purposes of CERB.
And I think that's a really good point. But at the end of the day, what we're still saying is that the founders stop spending money, and then those employees go and get it that way. So while employees may not be making up to their typical salary that they're making, it's still trying to find a way to preserve cash in the company and make sure employees are still surviving themselves. Because that's everyone's fear when you have staff, or it should be if you're a good human, is you're worried about their own livelihoods, not just your own.
The other one as well is the jobs share program has had its eligibility criteria changed. So if there's a situation where you still, again, want to keep people on and you've got 2 employees, you can maybe reduce both hours and still pay them and potentially get the wage subsidy for them. So, I think there's also a mental health aspect of work as well, right? People doing to work, it's such a crucial part of everything we do. So even if you can reduce hours, keep people on, and just give people an opportunity to do something other than watch the same Netflix shows and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think that anyone who, I think people are in the best situation from a standpoint right now going through this are the people who can still sort of get up and go to work every day. There's no way around that, because it starts to weigh on anybody who has too much idle time on their hands. It's just not good for anybody. So I totally hear that point, Bob. Kelly, you have a question about topping up employees who are getting the CERB?
Yeah. Hi, Stephanie. I know, like with conventional EI, if someone was laid off and went on EI, but you still have some work, casual work for them, kind of here and there, you can give them that work, and they can top up. They can, top up their EI up to a certain point, I guess. So it's to their advantage to take that additional work, whatever additional work you can give them. I'm just wondering if anyone knows how this works with the CERB program. If somebody, because it's like it sounds like it's it's a flat amount, $500 a week, I think, or is it? I don't know, or whether it's up to 500. I'm just not sure. But just wondering if if that's a discussion, or if that's something that is an incentive for an employee that is stopping work or slowing, mostly for all intents and purposes, sort of stopping work. But if you have a day here, a day there, that you can tell them, we'll be able to pay you for that time and top up that 500 a week or whatever it is. Or is the government saying, no, if you have extra, I mean, it wouldn't make sense for them to disincentivize companies to give employees, whatever work they can give them. But I don't know if you guys have any insights on that.
Bob, you just shared that, saying that he thinks that it requires no other source of income. I don't know the details, Kelly, but I believe so as well. Because I think that the government's, while they're still wanting to deploy this to look after people the right way, they still have to put parameters in place that prevent, inappropriate use of it too, right? Yeah. So I think that there's an element of that. Pat, what do you have?
That's a Canadian law firm. I just did a quick Google search because that's a great question. And there is something about topping it up. It looks like it might be a bit of extra paperwork you might have to do. Kind of scroll down a little bit there, so you can take a look there, maybe learn some more.
I can speak to it for just a second. I've walked someone through doing the application process, and right now it's the first 4 weeks they have to have 14 days of no pay, and then subsequently no pay for the next 3 periods. But the Prime Minister has said that there's going to be something likely coming in this week or next week where they can maybe do up to 10 hours, and they may adapt it a bit.
Interesting. That's interesting. Like, that'll be important when you get back to Bob's point about the mental health for people, about being able to work too. Aside from just productivity, it's better for people, and it gets them through this a little bit better if they can still work. I can speak freely on that. Like, I'm like, the amount of hours I have to put in certainly hasn't reduced at all. I'd be lost if I had nothing to do right now.
Hi, everybody. I don't know if I'm on, if I have my video there. Hi. How you doing? We just had an announcement. Minister Jolie is going to be on our webinar on the Chamber of Commerce site, and that's next week. And we've had Sean and Sean, great duo, to explain what they know. What I can tell you from everything that we've spoken to any provincial or federal government official is they want to know what the gaps are. And we're sharing them all, and they're developing programs as they go. So more things are coming out, but and they're moving incredibly fast for a large government. So I know nobody wants to hear stay there and wait, but we are hearing good things that are going to be coming out. And you don't have to be a member, by the way. Not that, sorry, Pat, but I don't want to jump in, but I just hear what you're saying, and those are the things that we're hearing every day. So you and anybody, like, it is freely shareable. We're doing watch events, live Facebook, for you to submit your questions, and this is going to help them develop programs that will help people. And that's what we're hearing from every single official. They just want to help. So sorry about that, but please, like our Facebook page, jump on to any of them. The webinars will be shared freely with anybody, okay?
Definitely, Kay. Thank you. It's super helpful. So, Kay, I'd be curious to ask you and Bob, and for the purpose of, just for the benefit of everyone in the group, have you gotten any feedback from the business community so far on the whole, like, the government covering up to 75% of wages?
Yeah, the feedback is, please, could you share a little bit more information on that? Now, they have to go back to Parliament to pass that too. So, you know, it's great, and they're announcing programs, but they're not necessarily announcing details with the programs. So what am I hearing? People are very scared to rehire people back because they can't afford to pay the 25%. And some of what the Prime Minister is saying is very vague, like maybe you might not have to cover it, but we're not getting specifics yet, but we hope to get more with Minister Jolie. And yeah, you can register for that and certainly submit your questions. They're doing a good job, and if we don't get to the questions, we send it off to them so that they know that we need those questions answered. And I'm going to echo your point. If I did not have this job to do for 8, 10, 12 hours a day, I would be losing my mind too. Thankfully we've got the members, and you know, we're hard at work, but it's such a joy to be able to, even though I'm working at my kitchen table, to work all day. So you forget sometimes what a joy it is just to have a job.
I think this is reminding everybody of that. Absolutely, honestly.
The general feedback, just jumping quick, that I've heard is it is very well understood that the current wage subsidy program doesn't meet the needs of startups and companies that are experiencing any form of growth. That is well understood. I mean, that 30% drop. I did see a report, I think, in the Globe and Mail this morning that suggests when the PM speaks today, he's going to change the eligibility for that wage subsidy from not being a 30% drop in revenue from March to March, but from potentially back to January or February, which should reduce that kind of real term kind of revenue loss impact. There was also some language that was going to suggest maybe for those people who lost or had to shut up in the middle of March, that the drop could be a 15% drop that you'd have to be able to demonstrate rather than 30% drop. But that was just in a press report, nothing official yet. I will, you know, as I hear more, I'll let people know.
Interesting. Have you heard anything? Because I had heard this from 2 people, and I'm not sure, you know, I haven't seen it anywhere publicly on a site myself yet, but anything around reimbursing companies for some HST that's been paid back, that's been paid in, so that they can receive some of the money they've paid in back to put cash flow back into their business?
I know.
Heard anything on that other than the deferrals of actual payment of additional taxes? So.
Mm-hmm.
I know that it was something that was suggested by different people, because it is, you know, I think they're looking for innovative and new ideas. And like Minister McKay said this morning, they're getting the great ideas, innovative ideas from people that they never would have thought of. So keep them coming.
Very interesting. So to get up just the topic of, like, so government grants aside, but curious to put it out to the group, because I know what, like, I can say, but going back to our 10 portfolio companies, every company is in a different position right now in terms of what their challenges is going to be going forward. I'm curious from the table, from the entrepreneurs on the call, what are the challenges that you foresee other than just cash? I get that, but what are the biggest challenges that are getting in your way of helping to even put together a strategy, say, for the next 6 months?
I can talk for a second, just from a very, very early stage company. We're looking at product solution fit at the moment. My video just failed out, sorry. And it's kind of hard to do interviews with people and try and get an idea of how they would respond to a product in a normal environment when no one's in a normal environment at the moment. Mm-hmm. So it really skews any research that you do, and you have to be really careful about what you take on is something that is true next year, for example. So that's been kind of a bit of a challenge of how to adjust what we do at this moment so that it doesn't completely skew our research and any of our kind of customer profiles and things like that.
Interesting. Kelly, curious from your thoughts, because you're a bit different, right? You're in growth mode right now, and so your technology's ready and you're wanting to sell to customers. So from your perspective, what's after what's happened now, how is that drastically changing the plan for the next 6 months for you guys?
Well, I would agree with what Sparrow's comments to some degree. We're in growth mode, and we're homing in on our ideal customer profile, and sort of just, that probably won't change, but what we're going to have to really focus on in the coming months is what projects those customers are what projects are likely to still go ahead for those customers. So,
Mhm.
So our business relates to, we have developed a remote monitoring system, early warning system for septic systems. So on the plus side, septic is certainly an essential service. That's not going to change. That's not going to go away. However, some of our customers, their customers were doing had new, say, restaurants in the pipeline, or we have a client or a customer in Colorado that's got a microbrewery. And so the customer we're dealing with was going to be doing the septic system for that brewery. So far, it's still supposed to be going ahead, but I think there's the potential that the owner of that brewery might decide, well, what am I doing, putting more money into doing this brewery right now when everything's shut down, and we may not be able to open for 6 months or 8 months or whatever. So for us, it's I think we really have to focus on to try to have really heart-to-heart discussions with the customers we're closest to understand which projects, the kinds of projects that they think are still likely to go ahead, and then really focus on trying to find more of those kinds of projects with other customers. But yeah, it is challenging, and I'm trying to stay on top of also, if this sector is, if it's likely going to be impacted by construction shutdowns, because we're already hearing about that. That's happened, I think, in Ontario, where any non-essential construction, speculative type construction, is being shut down to try to reduce the spread. If somebody has a failed septic system, definitely that's going to be considered essential. And so a lot of septic service companies are going to be allowed to keep moving ahead and doing that work. But it's the new projects, which were really the ones we were focusing on, the new construction, that are going to be more affected.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if Sean, my new Chief Business Development Officer, is on here, Sean Yeomans. I see him down here in the grid. So I don't know if he has anything he wants to add to that or throw in.
Basically, it's really about pushing for sales, and you're right.
Mm-hmm.
We have to figure out which ones are the ones most likely to go through. That's what we're doing. That's basically all I would say.
Yeah, and I think people need to be realistic, depending on the industry, of what opportunities are there for selling given the current climate, and which their projections are going to have to realistically move anticipated sales out a quarter too. Definitely. Anyone else? Anything to add on comments on that?
I know that there is a COVID-19 business adaptation advice program, and the government will spend will cover it for up to 100% of $2,500 to help you figure out where to go from here for business advice. It might be something that you guys might like to take a look at and apply for. It might help.
So one of my issues is I read about that program, and I don't know what to include when I ask for advice and what services I should even be asking for under that. I just typed in the chat, but I've spoken to my bookkeeper and I've spoken to a graphic designer about moving more of my sales online, but I don't know the full scope of what to include in my application for that program where they will reimburse up to $2,500, how to best spend that $2,500.
I hear you. What they're telling us is just call and ask questions, and they'll be happy to advise you.
Okay.
I think they're pretty open to anything and everything, because not one business is going to have the same requirements. Like Kelly's will be different than Sparrow's, and different than a lot of people. All they keep saying is just call us and talk to us, and we will help you out. So.
Okay, thank you.
I can talk to that for a second. I've actually talked to them on numerous occasions about that.
Mm-hmm.
Julie Alford at Innovation is the one overseeing that program, and she's fantastic. So if you just call and ask for her, she would be the one to be able to give you the information. But I spoke to her when it was announced, and what they're saying is that it's a program specifically designed on coming up with a strategy for your business. So whether it be marketing strategy, a finance strategy, an overall business strategy, whatever type of thing that you're worrying about right now, business development, whatever, that's what the money is there for. It's not necessarily for the implementation of the plan. So for instance, if I was helping a client with something, mine's a little more straightforward because it's always kind of strategy talk. It would be their responsibility to then go enact what we talked about. So like for a marketing perspective, you might talk about what you should do, but they're not allowed to do it for you. Like they can't place the ads, they can't do the thing. But other than that, it's pretty well whatever you need.
Okay.
Fair to say it's meant to help with the costs that you would incur when you engage with some of these specialists or people that can help you develop it.
Yeah.
Did I hear someone next?
I could ask another question. Oh,
okay.
Sorry. Want me to go?
Yeah, sure, Kelly.
Okay. Wondering if you have any thoughts or advice, or if anyone else does, regarding if you're trying to, I don't know if reposition is quite the right word, and I know April Dunford's going to be giving a presentation tonight that I'm sure will be very, very good related to positioning. But you know, I can't help, of course, you can't help in these times to try to think of, well, what benefits are there to my customers, or are there some new benefits to my product or service that perhaps I hadn't really been focusing on before, that this whole COVID crisis now, you know, has you know, brought to light, or it's something now that I could be presenting to customers when I'm doing sales calls, or, you know, so on. But you know, how to do that in a way that doesn't look like, you know, we're trying to take advantage of you know, the crisis, because you don't want to look like, you know, you're just trying to jump on the bandwagon or whatever. But like, just as an example, like in my case, I've been thinking that, for example, in Washington State, you know, where it was a hot spot in the U.S., I was at a conference in Seattle in January, so I did a presentation. There were quite a few public health people that regulate septic, that also are probably involved with dealing with the COVID crisis, that were in attendance at this conference and heard my presentation. I had, you know, made some good contacts and feedback. So I'm wondering if you know, it would be, I'd like to kind of point out that by having septic sitter installed on a property, it would also potentially help deal with some of the potential threat of the COVID virus spreading, if it could provide advance warning before a septic system starts surfacing and you have sewage backing up in somebody's backyard, because that sewage now potentially could contain COVID virus. So, you know, it's you know, it wouldn't necessarily be the prime reason someone would buy it, but I'm wondering if, you know, I'd like to be able to kind of point out that feature, because it may cause some people in public health who may be on the fence with recommending, or at least spreading the word about this new technology and what it does. It may just be another selling feature, another selling point, that, yeah, you know, this is, previously, you know, we never wanted to have puddles of sewage, you know, in people's backyards, because there's all kinds of bacteria and viruses and pathogens that, you know, are contained in sewage, and it's always been a public health concern. But with the added concern about trying to prevent the spread of this virus, it's just another thing that may impact. But, you know, ultimately, I guess the question is how to delicately try to, you know, put forward some of these things without looking like we're just trying to jump on the COVID bandwagon, you know, so to speak.
I I can speak directly about a company that I'm working inside with right now in a sales capacity, and being very brazen about it. But in that specific case, Kelly, we have no problem saying that this is the technology that you're going to need to come out of post COVID-19 in this specific industry, and here's exactly why. So I feel very fine about it in that case, that I don't feel like I'm saying COVID-19 just because, but I can draw a very clear straight line to exactly why the product is going to be really beneficial. So while the product itself hasn't changed, this has just highlighted the importance of, this is just to heighten the importance of some of the benefits of the product. And as long as you can do that in a genuine way, where you're not just trying to find take a very crooked way to get there, then I think that's fine. Because granted, there are companies who really won't be able to draw a straight line. So I think it's not going to be very easy to draw a straight line to how I'm going to help you protect you from COVID-19, but more so how I'm going to help you work better after COVID-19. So my product may actually have zero to do with COVID-19, and I haven't started creating masks or making hand sanitizer, but my product, it helps with this. And coming out of COVID-19 into our new reality, that's going to be more critical than ever. So I think it's finding a way just to be able to tell your story that doesn't seem far-fetched and seems very realistic about how, and how it's specifically, or the why it specifically is going to be what's needed coming out of this. Mm-hmm. Or during it, or whatever the case may be. I don't know everyone on the line, so I could speak to Angela. So Angela, I hear you when you said, the concern is probably 12 months from now. The strength that you'll have and being able to market it is that right now, everyone needs help developing a strategy, and you're an expert in that. So while you might not be able to keep me from, catching COVID-19, you can certainly help my business navigate a way through this, not unharmed, but the best way to navigate through this. So coming out the other side, my company is positioned to be in its best possible place, given the circumstances, for success. So I feel that you'll be able to spend time and then for the next 24 months helping with that alone. But it's just trying to take advantage of how to message it and tying it back to the scary time that we're in, that makes it real for people in a real way, not in a disingenuous way. Thoughts? Steph, you're the brand expert. What do you think?
I have to go off mute. Yeah, it's a little bit tricky because I completely agree with everything that you're saying, Steph. And it's true, as service providers, we're just trying to be as efficient as possible and trying to help people. But then when you get into the marketing and actually creating the narrative and the copy, you do have to kind of be a little bit cautious, because you don't want to try to sell people on fear, because it's just never a good experience in the end, and it's not going to benefit your brand as a whole. So it's kind of tricky where you do have to really monitor what you're saying and look at your customer profiles and say, what are they feeling right now? And be there for them in a way, but don't try to profit off of it. So just be very cautious of your messaging and your story and your why. And so that's why I'm still drafting up my offering for that thing, because you have to be really careful, because I have heard a couple people look at some people's offerings and say that I just feel like I'm being sold to, and it's scary. We're all scared. There's a fear, and you never want to sell based on fear. So
no, I think that's where it goes back to that straight line. You have to be able to really connect it and not just try to finagle a crazy odd way to get there.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's very fair. Thoughts from anyone else on that?
I can speak a bit to that too. So I have a business that does leadership coaching, and we can do a lot of advice giving too. And specifically for that adaptation advice program as well, I did speak to Julie at Innovation too, to see how my services could fit in there, because I think leaders now more than ever really need support and need help just figuring out how to accept the current situation that they're in so that they can move past it. Because we're spending so much time just dwelling on the what if and the worries about the future, where it is really difficult to be navigating and forecasting and all of that right now. But I'm often seen as more that soft skills or that nice to have type of service that, sure, if there's some extra money in the bank, but I might be biased, and I think that it is more important and really worthwhile to be investing in. So we've been a little more quiet with our marketing these days too, just because we don't want to come across as tone deaf, and we do want to show up that we're supporting and wanting to help people through this, but not being a traditional type of business. And like knowing too, like at Innovation, it's all accountants who are going to be approving these proposals. So if I'm talking my clients through the grieving process as they're going through the motions of COVID, that's a little bit harder to get a guarantee to get people to sign up. So it's kind of finding that balance, I guess. And but I'm still trying to stay really centered in myself so that I can stay confident in what I have to offer, and hope that that straight line will get connected with certain clients out there, right? It's like every single one of us out here, we're not the perfect fit for everybody. But how do we keep going and maintain that excitement, I guess, through all of this too, so that we do get to stay working every day?
It's really interesting on your comment there. So like I could see before any of this started, like I've seen it myself. So many founders, like I hear too, like, I don't need your help. I know what I need to do. It was my idea. I'm so smart. And you just like, all right, once someone has those walls up, we all know we're just like, sure, you go at it. We know they don't, and they need help because no one knows how to do everything. But I would think, honestly, given the time that's going on, a lot of those people are feeling, for the first time ever, in a sense of, I don't have any idea what to do, even though they had a false sense of confidence before that they didn't need help or advice. So I would view like leaders, coaches who are coaching leaders more than ever will be such a critical component that a lot of these companies are going to need access to, because they don't know everything. And so if they can interact with people who have the ability to, talk specifically to that subset of group of founders, CEOs, leaders, and who also then have experience built up because they've been talking with other leaders and how they're going through it, then I would think of you guys as such a knowledgeable resource that makes sense that more of these local entrepreneurs need to be leaning on. Myself, but
Yeah, and that's what we're trying to navigate, because even we've got current clients that we were doing full day sessions in person with them. We can't sit on Zoom all day. Like, you can barely get people to sit tight for a full 2 hours, right? So we've been navigating that and adjusting our offerings and whatnot. But now to reach more people, I feel like those bigger companies that we tend to work with some of them are essential services. So they're actually so inundated and busy that they need the coaching but have a hard time making time for it. But now might be a great introduction for me that I keep seeing and keeps coming back. And Steph PB and I talked yesterday too about this might be my opportunity to kind of break into that entrepreneur smaller business segment. But how do I do that without coming across as tone deaf too, right? So just being really careful there, I guess.
I feel like, to segue into that Rach and Aaron at the Startup Zone could probably help throw that as like some type of a way to get that idea out there to the masses of the companies anyway that are on the mail list of the Startup Zone.
Yeah, we're working on a webinar. Rachel and I are going to chat soon too. So yeah,
like that seems like a fantastic way to get it out there. Because again, going back to something I said at the start of this call, there are people who are listening for the first time in a really long time. And so, while there's still some that aren't, there are more people leaned in right now willing to take some help or longing for the help. So they would really appreciate it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I think I struggle with that too, in the sense of like, I know just from my experience in business that probably 90% of small businesses are operating with no type of budgeting whatsoever.
Totally.
it's just not something they think about or have time to do. And I would say small to medium size. Like once they get big enough to have a board, they have to, they're forced. But until that stage, they just don't do it. And I'm biased, obviously, but if you don't have a budget right now, how do you even know when you're going to run out of money, or what funding you need, or what your sales even look like next month? So like, I know I can help people, but I also don't want to look like I'm pushing myself on people. So like, from my perspective, I've been trying not to sell purposefully. I do have people that have reached out for my help, and that's great, but it's not like, it's something like, I saw one of the big firms in Charlottetown with all of their ads on this like adaptation program, and it's just not something, hire me. I'm just not comfortable. It feels yucky, and that's not how I want to feel. So yeah, like just the same as what Julianne said, right? Like it's definitely something I feel like I can offer to a lot of people and help them get through that process a lot smoother than if they were to try to do it on their own. But it's not something that I want to kind of throw in people's faces either. I just think it's taking advantage of people right now.
Yeah, to a point, but I would say that like not to do it in a disingenuous way again, because when you're running a small shop, it's not, it can't be, and the big players just are disingenuous. It's just marketing, advertising in a tacky way. But I do think if there's a way for you to get it out there of like, just as I'm here and these are services I offer.
Yeah,
I think it'd be surprising the amount of business owners who, you're right, they have no idea what their cash flow truly looks like from a projection standpoint. They literally have inflows, they pay their bills every month, and that's how it goes. And so I think there's a lot of business owners right now that are sitting scared shitless because they don't know. So they can't confidently say that even though I've closed my doors, this is what it costs me for the month, even if I don't have any revenue or any staff. Or so there's so many that would truly benefit from that service. Oh my goodness, more than ever. Or even to help put plans in place. I think about like, even so, say, the lights turn in a lot of businesses the middle of May, and for the most part PEI is able to be up and running on itself. I think about the help that they need then to know what they can and can't do, what their limitations from a cash flow position really are, so that they don't try to move so quickly that they can't, or take too much staff back on too quickly where they can't, things like that it'll really help them navigate through those waters. It's uncharted territory for everybody. And while a lot of them have gotten by with not looking at that stuff, I think that the new reality is they have to.
Yeah, I'm sitting here nodding at you, but you can't see me. I think too, like what I've been telling my clients in that perspective is the people that I'm working with right now are doing scenario analysis, right? So we're looking at what could happen from a worst case. Things are going to open back up, or how they're going to open back up, or if they open and close again. So kind of looking at it from different scenarios and saying, if this happens, I might have to do this, or if this happens, I can only hire back this many people, and telling people, you're not going to get it right. You're not going to guess right, but at least if you have a few options, what really happens should fit kind of sort of into one of the options. And a lot of people are like, oh yeah, that makes sense. But it's like, never would have thought of it on my own. Whereas in my world, it's just something you do, right?
Mm-hmm. True. Very interesting. Yeah. Like I've heard it so many times from companies, and I think most of the people on the line and like fall into different categories than the type of companies I see, and I get that. But what I hear all the time is like, what does it matter what my projections look like? I'm never going to hit them anyway, or they're not real, or they're not this. And I'm like, the real purpose is it's one, how people can look. You can look at those projections and really dig into what makes sense, what's realistic. And so no one ever anticipates your financial statements afterwards to look just like your projections. It is a benchmark, and going through the process of building them, and Angela, I'm clearly preaching to the wrong person, as you know this, but going through the process of building them, it's a real aha moment and awareness for owners of businesses, founders, whatever you want to call yourselves, where you can really be realistic about what is likely to happen or likely to not happen. And like we encourage everyone, COVID-19 aside, like I always like to challenge companies that are coming in and say, move all your revenue out 1 quarter and tell me what it looks like then. And, you know, stress test this stuff and get a sense on it. And I always believe this because I think it, even when I look at my own financial situation, every time I sit down and I go through my own situation, so business owners do it, and you really get a handle on what the real situation is, it does make you feel better. Even if it's not a great situation, at least you don't feel out of control and your mind is running with all the what ifs, because you really kind of put them out there and put a map in front of you. And so it just makes it clearer for you so that you can, you know, plan accordingly of what to do next.
Yeah, I've never worked with anyone in all of my time doing this that has not had like a, oh my God, I've never even thought of that moment, right? Like there's always something, no matter how much you've thought it through in your head, that once you write it down, you're like, oh crap, what about this thing?
Totally. Yeah, absolutely. That's just normal. So it's such a great exercise for people to go through. Yeah, that's awesome. It's really interesting though. Both of you offer like very tailored services. Specifically, sorry to the two of you spoke, but just very tailored services that will help founders come out the other side of this. And it's awesome to see that there's people like you guys around right now in the local business community that have the ability to help some of these founders through the time. Mm-hmm. And I think that the Chamber and the Startup Zone can plug you guys. Okay, you're muted.
I'm very sorry. This is new technology for me, really, guys. I've just learned Zoom in 3 weeks. I like to talk to people face to face and see your eyes, but I'm learning. Anyway, Angela, I mean, while you were talking, I could think of 5 different webinars you could give. Mitigating financial risk just in a crisis situation, how to even begin a starter one. So much like this here, I would think that is a very nice way for you to promote yourself, but also to give back and to help people. And when you give back and you help people, it always comes back to you tenfold, always.
Well, keep your eyes peeled with Exit Realty and the Startup Zone, because there's 2 webinars coming.
Ooh, awesome, Angela. Awesome. I will.
Definitely. And I'll share that around within our network as well, because people need it. So if people will sign on, and even if, you know, 3 of the 10 decide they want it that I send it to, then it's a win for them.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'll do the same, Angela.
Interesting. Any other comments or questions from the group before we run out of time? Oh, so quiet. I didn't go into it because I think for the purpose of the audience on the call, it just doesn't make sense. But if anyone wants to reach out individually and have a conversation around like raising money from investors and what the future holds, certainly happy to do that. It didn't make sense for this call because the majority on you aren't going to be raising money. And it would fall on deaf ears, but the offer's out there. So if anyone is interested in that, I'm definitely open to having a short session on that. Even Rachel, if we want to do that through the Startup Zone, that's fine. But to be very specific and tailored around what it looks like for companies who either have just closed on money, or B, we're in the process of trying to ramp up to raise some capital. Sound good?
Sounds good. Thank you.
Awesome. Any final?
I'll likely take you up on that at some point in the near future, Stefanie.
Yeah, definitely. Like I think it's something that we can offer through the Startup Zone, because there's enough companies I know that are around here that are in a really crappy time where they were just trying to be positioning themselves that they could go out into the investor world and raise a little bit of capital, and likely their first round of capital. And so how to navigate through this and what that looks like, and how our investors are feeling, and all of that right now, it's certainly a good discussion to be had.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely agree. 100%.
Okay.
Awesome.
Well, that's all I have to say today. But if anyone has any questions, my contact information is with the Startup Zone too. So don't hesitate to shoot me an email, and happy to get on a call at any time.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Awesome. Thanks
Great
everyone.
chatting with you all. Thanks for the input, everybody.